My child. Stop scrolling for a moment, because what you are about to hear was meant to reach you before you misunderstood their silence completely. Something is waiting beneath the distance between you and the person your heart keeps returning to. Their avoidance is real, but the reason is not what you have feared. They are not staying away because they feel nothing. They are staying away because every time they come near you, something awakens inside them that they have been trying desperately to control. You noticed the change before anyone said a word. You felt it in the way their eyes moved away too quickly. You sensed it in the unnatural space they began placing between their body and yours. There were moments when they could have come closer, moments when a simple step would have placed them beside you, yet they remained at a distance. You wondered whether you had done something wrong. You questioned your appearance, your words, your energy, and even the smallest details about yourself. But heaven has seen the question you have been too embarrassed to speak aloud. You have wondered whether there is something about you that repels them. There is not. Their distance is not rejection. It is self-protection. Listen carefully, because the truth becomes stranger from here. Your soulmate has connected your presence with a scent they cannot explain. It is not merely perfume, soap, clothing, or anything ordinary. Even when you wear nothing noticeable, they sense it. Even when you have passed through a place minutes earlier, something seems to remain behind. To them, you smell like a memory they have never lived, a home they have never entered, and a promise they once made somewhere beyond the reach of conscious thought. That is why they avoid you. When they come close, their mind becomes confused, but their soul becomes certain. They may never have told anyone this. In fact, they have tried to convince themselves that it is imagination. They have blamed the room, the weather, a familiar fragrance, or some detail from their past. Yet every explanation has failed because the experience only happens around you. There is something in your presence that reaches deeper than logic. It reminds them of safety, longing, and loss all at once. It is so comforting that it frightens them. Pause here, because the next part matters more than you realize. Your soulmate is not afraid of you. They are afraid of what they become when they are near you. They are usually more controlled than they appear. They have learned how to hide emotions, how to remain composed, and how to leave before anyone sees what is happening beneath the surface. Perhaps they have been disappointed before. Perhaps someone once made them feel foolish for loving too deeply. Perhaps they promised themselves they would never again surrender their peace to another human being. Then you appeared, and without trying, you began undoing every wall they had built. The scent they associate with you has become a doorway. Whenever they sense it, something inside them opens. At first, it was only a passing feeling. They noticed it in a crowded place and turned their head, expecting to see someone from long ago. Instead, they saw you. Their heart reacted before their mind could understand. They may have stared a little too long. They may have become quiet. They may have left sooner than expected. You probably interpreted their behavior as disinterest, but within them, an old and nameless recognition had begun. They thought the feeling would disappear. It did not. The next time you came close, it grew stronger. That invisible familiarity returned, and this time it carried an emotion with it. They felt as if they were standing at the edge of something they had been searching for without knowing they were searching. Their breathing changed. Their thoughts scattered. The words they intended to say vanished. Suddenly, being near you felt both peaceful and unbearable. My child, not every person runs from what they dislike. Some run from what they desire too deeply. Your soulmate has been trying to reduce the power of this connection by reducing their exposure to you. They believe distance will restore their balance. They think that if they avoid your eyes, your voice, and the subtle scent that follows your presence, they can return to the person they were before you affected them. But they have discovered something they were not prepared for. Distance has made it worse. Now they notice reminders of you everywhere. A breeze passes, and for 1 second, they think you are near. Someone walks by wearing a similar fragrance, and their heart jumps before disappointment settles in. They enter a room you once stood in, and an ache rises in them without warning. They wake from dreams with the impression that you were beside them. They cannot explain why the world has begun carrying traces of you. They have tried to laugh it off. They have tried to dismiss it. They have even become frustrated with themselves. But the more they resist, the more intensely their soul responds. This is where heaven asks you not to take their avoidance personally. Their behavior may have hurt you. Their silence may have made you question your value. You may have looked at yourself through the lens of their confusion and concluded that something about you was not enough. But their inability to approach you is not evidence that you are unworthy of love. It is evidence that they have not yet learned how to stand calmly in the presence of something real. You carry an energy they cannot easily categorize. To them, you smell like rain arriving after a long season of dryness. You smell like clean pages in a story that has not yet been written. You smell like a room filled with peace after years of noise. You smell like the kind of belonging they secretly stopped believing existed. And this is precisely why they keep pulling away. Because if you were ordinary to them, they could approach you without fear. If you meant nothing, they would not have to monitor every glance. If your presence did not matter, they would not remember the smallest moments. But they do remember. They remember where you were standing when they first noticed that strange familiarity. They remember the expression on your face. They remember how the air seemed different after you left. They remember turning toward an empty space because, for a second, they thought you had returned. These details have stayed with them far longer than they intended. Something else happened recently, and this is the part they do not want you to know yet. They were near someone they trusted when the subject of you came up unexpectedly. Your name may have been spoken, or someone may have described you without realizing how deeply it would affect them. Your soulmate tried to appear calm. They answered carefully. They kept their voice steady. But then the other person mentioned something about the way you make people feel. They said that being around you feels strangely peaceful. Your soulmate froze. Not visibly enough for everyone to notice, but deeply enough that their inner world shifted. Until that moment, they believed the experience belonged only to them. They thought the familiarity, the comfort, and the unexplainable sense of recognition were private symptoms of their own confusion. Hearing someone else describe your presence made them realize that you carry something real. But what happened next unsettled them even more. The person speaking described a faint scent connected with you. Not a specific perfume. Not a product. They described it as something clean, warm, and familiar, like returning to a place where the heart can finally rest. Your soulmate said nothing. Inside, however, every wall began to shake. For days, they had been telling themselves that they invented it. They believed their mind had attached meaning to something insignificant. But now another person had felt a version of the same thing. Your soulmate could no longer dismiss the possibility that your presence carries an emotional imprint, something subtle but powerful that affects people more deeply than you realize. Yet their reaction to it is different. Others may feel comfort. Your soulmate feels recognition. And recognition carries responsibility. Somewhere inside them, they understand that they cannot keep treating this connection casually. They know that if they move toward you, they will have to become honest. They will have to admit that you affect them. They will have to release the version of themselves that survives through emotional distance. They will have to risk being known. That is the true source of their avoidance. They are not moving away from your scent. They are moving away from the future it seems to reveal. Whenever they stand close to you, images come to them. Not always clear images, but feelings shaped like moments. A quiet morning. A shared room. Laughter after difficulty. Your hand near theirs. A sense that the long search is over. These impressions come too quickly for them to control, and they leave your soulmate shaken because they have never allowed themselves to imagine such closeness with anyone. They may not call these visions. They may simply call them strange thoughts. But heaven sees what they refuse to name. Their soul is remembering a possibility their fear has not accepted. Do not misunderstand this as a guarantee that every dream will unfold exactly as imagined. Human beings still choose. Timing still matters. Healing still matters. Truth must still be spoken freely. But the connection has reached a point where denial is becoming harder than honesty, and your soulmate knows it. That is why their behavior has become inconsistent. One day, they seem drawn to you. The next day, they disappear. One moment, their eyes soften. The next moment, they act distant. They may create unnecessary reasons to leave. They may stand far away even when there is space beside you. They may avoid places where they know you will be, only to ask about you later. Their actions look contradictory because two forces are battling within them. Their heart moves toward you. Their fear pulls them back. And the strange familiarity attached to your presence intensifies both. You should know something else. Your soulmate has begun noticing that the scent appears strongest during emotionally charged moments. When you are vulnerable, when you speak from your heart, or when you quietly endure something without seeking attention, they become more aware of it. It is as if your emotional truth changes the atmosphere around you. Once, they noticed it when you were trying to appear strong. You may not even remember the moment. Perhaps you smiled while hiding disappointment. Perhaps you supported others while carrying your own burden. Perhaps you stood alone after everyone else had left. Your soulmate saw more than you thought. They sensed the ache beneath your composure, and suddenly that familiar warmth surrounded them again. This time, it did not only remind them of home. It made them want to protect you. That desire frightened them more than attraction ever could. Attraction can be ignored. Protectiveness reveals attachment. They realized that your pain matters to them. They realized that if someone hurt you, they would feel it. They realized that your absence would not create simple curiosity but genuine emptiness. That was the moment they began putting more distance between you. You may have thought they became cold. In truth, they became overwhelmed. My child, sometimes a person withdraws not because their feelings have faded, but because their feelings have finally become impossible to deny. Their avoidance is an attempt to regain control before they reveal too much. They are afraid you will see the truth in their face. They are afraid that one close moment will expose everything. They are afraid that if they remain near you long enough, they will say the words they have rehearsed in private. Yes, they have rehearsed words. They have imagined explaining their behavior. They have imagined telling you that something about you follows them after you leave. They have imagined confessing that your presence feels familiar in a way that makes no logical sense. But each time they prepare to speak, embarrassment stops them. How could they explain it without sounding strange? How could they tell you, "You smell like a life I have missed, even though I have never lived it"? How could they admit that standing near you makes them feel both found and exposed? They fear you would laugh. They fear you would misunderstand. Most of all, they fear you might feel the same, because then everything would become real. There is another layer beneath this, one connected to their past. Long before you came into their life, your soulmate associated a similar feeling with one of the safest moments they ever experienced. It may have been childhood, a loved one, a peaceful home, or a rare day when they felt completely protected. The exact memory has faded, but the emotional imprint remained. Your presence awakens that imprint. Not because you are replacing someone from their past, but because your energy speaks the same language of safety. This is why their reaction is so deep. You are not merely attracting them. You are touching a part of them that has been lonely for a very long time. A part they rarely show. A part that still hopes to be received gently. They have spent years convincing themselves they do not need that kind of comfort. Then you walked into their world carrying it without trying. And now they do not know whether to come closer or run. Heaven wants you to guard your heart from one dangerous conclusion: do not decide that their distance defines your worth. Do not change everything about yourself in an attempt to become more acceptable to someone who is battling their own emotions. Do not shrink, perform, or become anxious over every detail of your presence. There is nothing shameful about you. The title of this message may have led you to expect rejection, embarrassment, or some cruel revelation. But the truth is far more intimate. Your soulmate avoids coming near because, to them, you smell like something sacred they are not ready to lose. You smell like peace. You smell like truth. You smell like the end of running. And a person who has survived by running will often fear the place where they are finally meant to stop. But their resistance is weakening. Something happened very recently that changed the balance. They encountered that familiar scent in a place where you could not possibly have been. They stopped walking. Their heart began racing. For one suspended moment, they were certain you were nearby. They turned around, searched the space, and found no sign of you. Yet the feeling remained. Then a memory surfaced, one they had not thought about in years. It was not a memory of you. It was a memory of a promise. A promise they once made to themselves after a painful ending. They had whispered that if they ever met someone who felt like home, they would not let fear destroy it. At the time, they did not believe such a person would come. The promise felt safe because it seemed unlikely to be tested. Now it is being tested. Your soulmate stood there, surrounded by that unexplainable familiarity, and remembered their own words. For the first time, they understood that avoiding you may not be protecting them. It may be causing them to repeat the very loss they once begged never to experience again. That realization followed them through the entire day. They tried to focus, but their mind kept returning to you. They imagined you noticing their distance. They imagined you believing they disliked you. They imagined you slowly giving up. And for the first time, the thought of losing you became more frightening than the thought of approaching you. This is the turning point heaven wanted you to know about. Until now, fear has been stronger. But something is changing. Your soulmate has begun considering a step they previously refused to take. It may appear small from the outside, but for them, it is enormous. They are thinking about entering your space instead of avoiding it. They are considering staying when their instinct says to leave. They are imagining telling you at least part of the truth. Not all of it. Not yet. But enough to change the atmosphere between you. They may begin with an ordinary question. They may use a practical excuse. They may approach as though nothing unusual has happened. But beneath their calm expression, they will be watching for one thing. They want to know whether your presence still feels the same. They want to know whether the sense of home returns. And deep down, they already know it will. The next time they come near you, pay attention not only to their words but to the pause before them. Notice whether they take a deeper breath. Notice whether their expression changes as if an invisible memory has touched them. Notice whether they remain 1 second longer than necessary. That second will reveal more than a speech. Because your soulmate is reaching the end of their ability to pretend. Their heart is preparing to cross the distance their fear created. But there is one final reason they have resisted you, and it is more personal than everything you have heard so far. It is connected to the exact words they almost spoke the last time they were near you. The words rose to their lips, but someone interrupted before you could hear them. Your soulmate has replayed that moment repeatedly. They have wondered what would have happened if they had finished the sentence. They have wondered how you would have looked at them. They have wondered whether their life would already be different. What they nearly told you was not simply that you smelled familiar. It was not merely that you reminded them of home. They were about to confess that the scent around you matches something from a dream they have been having for years, a dream in which a hidden voice tells them they will recognize the person meant to change their life before that person ever says a word. And in that dream, the voice always reveals one final detail. A detail your soulmate has never shared with anyone. A detail they suddenly recognized the moment you passed beside them. But before heaven reveals what that detail was, you must understand why your soulmate looked terrified the last time your eyes met, because in that exact moment, they realized the dream was no longer a dream,